Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 5. In this lesson, we are going to talk about combinators and attribute selector in CSS. My name is Mildred. CSS selectors are used to target specific elements in an HTML document for styling. And we have two categories of selectors that are very powerful. We've looked at the simple selectors in the earlier lessons where we targeted the HTML element, we defined the class selector, the ID selector. Now these powerful categories are the combinators and then the attribute selector. The combinator selectors defines the relationship between elements, while the attribute selector targets elements based on attributes and the values of the attributes. Let's start with combinators and let's look at how we can define the relationship between elements and then style these elements based on those relationships in the HTML structure. There are four main types of combinators. We have the descendant combinator, we have the child, we have the adjacent sibling, and then we have the general sibling. Let's look at them one after the other. So for the descendant selector, we write it like we normally write selector, then in the pair of curly braces we put the property and the value, but we have to put the parent, a space, and then the descendant. Let's say on our HTML page we have a div tag, and within this div tag we have a paragraph. Let's say this paragraph will be blue and we close it. Then we want to have maybe a section, and within this section we have another paragraph. Say this one too, since it is inside the div, and then we close paragraph, and then at the end of the section we have another paragraph, but let's put this outside the div so we can illustrate it properly. So we'll say this paragraph is outside and not blue. Alright, so I have this HTML page. I have the heading, I have a div tag like a container. Within it I have a paragraph that is just immediately after the start div. Then I have a section, then within the section I have a paragraph. We want to illustrate the descendant select. The descendant selector uses a space. So let's say we want to get parents, which is div, and we want to get all paragraph within the parent div, right? And we want to make all of the color blue like this. So what we want to achieve is to say all of the descendants of the div. So every paragraph tag that is within this div, it doesn't matter if it is within another parent element, but is a descendant of the div, which means it is inside of the div tag. So this paragraph tag will have the blue applied. This paragraph will have it applied because it is still a descendant, although maybe like a grandchild because there is another parent here. But this is outside of the div, and so we will not get that style applied. When I come to my web page and I refresh, I will have this paragraph will be blue, this one too, and this one outside is not. So this is the concept of a combinator where we apply style based on the relationship between elements. So the paragraph tag that is within a div tag, which are descendants of the div tag, are going to have the style applied because we use a space between the parent and that descendant. We have the child selector. And this child selector selects the direct child element, not adding the grandchildren like we saw in the descendant selector. So if we look at this, P is going to be a direct child. Let's change the text so that we can see it clearly. Let's say this is a direct child. Let's say we want to make this green, for instance. And this is not a direct child because it's inside this. It has another parent. So this is a grandchild. So let's say this is not a direct child. And then this one is not within the div tag, so we'll leave it. What we want to do for the child selector is to use the greater than sign. So we want every direct child of the div tag to be, let's say we want it green this time. Every direct child that is a paragraph tag of the div should be green. And so when we refresh, this is green because it's a direct child, just as we have illustrated. We have another one called the adjacent sibling selector. This uses the plus sign like this. When we say sibling, we mean like they have the same parent, right? So it selects an element that is immediately next to or that is immediately after the specified. So we're looking for the P tag that is immediately next to the div, and when we come here we'll say that this P tag is immediately next to the div tag. Let's illustrate this. Let's use another example. Let's say we have another heading H2, and here let's say this is a heading and close H2, and then we want to have a paragraph, and let's say this paragraph is right after the H2, right? And we want to say this one is not directly after the H2. So let's say this one we'll make it red, and then this one will leave it to be the default, not red, like this. We want to use the adjacent sibling, which means that the tag directly after. So now we're dealing with the H2 tag. So we want the paragraph that is immediately after the H2 tag to have the color, let's say red. And when we come to our web page and we refresh, we have the paragraph directly after this is red. But when we want to do general sibling, we use this tilde sign, which now means that select all the elements that are sibling of an element. So every element after that element is a sibling of the element. All right, so let's say we have this H2 heading, we have this paragraph. Let's say we'll change this color to purple so that we can see it. And this is not directly after the H2, but it is a sibling. So this will also be purple. And let's say we have another tag, the div, right? We'll have a container here, and within this container we have a paragraph. We'll say this is in a div tag, and this will be not purple. So what we are trying to achieve here is to say the general sibling will select every element that has the same parent. So you see the H2 here, they're all children of the body element, and everything after the H2, the P tag here, the div tag, they're all direct siblings, right? But this P is not a sibling. It will be like a cousin. This div is a sibling, and this is the child of a sibling. So it will not have that style applied here. So we use the tilde sign to say we want to get every paragraph that is a direct sibling of the H2 tag. So we're using the general sibling selector, so we'll get all the siblings, not just the first one after. So when we come here and we refresh, we have the couple as we want them. So now we have seen the different combinator. We know that the descendant uses a space, the child uses the greater than sign, the adjacent sibling uses a plus sign, and the tilde sign is for general sibling. Alright, let's look at the attribute selectors that target elements based on the presence of or based on a particular value of the attribute. For instance, we want to have, let me delete this. Let's say we want to have a link here. Let this link go nowhere. We'll just say link. And we want to have another link. And then we have an attribute target is equal to, let's say we want to open in a new browser window. And then we want to say link with target. We want to make this red. Now, when we want to use an attribute selector, we want to say, for instance, we want the anchor tag that has the target attribute. So we'll put a pair of square brackets and we'll specify target. And we want the color of that link to be, let's say, red. We'll change it so we can always see. So we want to select or apply a style based on an attribute. So we put the HTML elements, a pair of square brackets, and the name of the attribute. And when we refresh our page, we have the normal link that doesn't have a target attribute and the link with target red. We want to have a style applied to an element with an exact attribute value. So now we have this target. Let's do it like we're doing a form. For instance, I'll go back to my HTML and let's say I want to have a different range of examples so you can see this. Let's say we have input and this type is equal to text, and then we have input and we have placeholder. So I'm going to refresh my page so we can see this form. So we have this form here where we have inputs with the type of text and the type of password here, and we want to apply a style to the input based on the value of the attribute. So now we'll come to our CSS page and we'll say we want to apply a style to the input element and we want it to have a type attribute and the value of that type should be equal to text. And what we want to apply to this is to say maybe we want to change the border of it. So we'll say border and say we want it to be 2px dashed, something like this. And when we come here and refresh our page, we'll have the border of this input change. So this is how we apply a style based on the value of an attribute. We can apply or select an element when the attribute contains a space separated list of words or one of the list of words matches the value. For instance, let's change the kind of input we have here. Let's say we have a div tag and we have the class attribute and it has a space separated list of words like note, highlight, important, and then you say this is highlighted and we close div and let's have another div and we say here is class. Let's have the class attribute is equal to. Now we want to select this element where this attribute contains one of these words. So we'll come here and we'll say we want to apply a style to the div tag where it has the class attribute and the value. So we'll put a tilde here is equal to the value contains highlight. So when we look here, we only have the first div having highlight as one of the values. So we use a tilde sign when the class contains one of these, and let's say we change the background to yellow like that. And when I come and I refresh, I have that this is highlighted yellow. Okay, and let's make it clearer. So let's put something here and say this is not highlighted so we can see it. So we can see this is highlighted because it has one of the values of the attribute contains highlight. If we want to select elements whose attribute value is exactly a particular value or starts with a particular value. For instance, when we have our HTML file and we have different language selection, let's use this as an example. We say P, let's have the lang attribute is equal to English, right? And we'll say English text, and let's make sure this one will be green. And we have another P, and we use the lang attribute is equal to, let's put the language and the dialect. We say English US, and we'll say US English, and we also want this to be green. And then we say let's use another language, P lang equal to range, and we have range. Let's say this one will not be green, so we want to apply the color green to the text. So how do we specify this? We want to have all of the paragraph that has the value of the attribute to be exactly a value we specified or starts with that. So we're going to say we want to have all paragraph that has the lang attribute. We use this pipe sign to say it's exactly English or starts with English in EN. So that means it will apply to this first one and this second one, because both has EN that has the only value or has the start of the value. So we have that. We can also select elements where the attribute starts with a specified value, and we use starts with using the, I think we use the caret sign. Let's see, caret sign like that. So we want to have something that starts with particular thing. So we'll still have both of them, but we can illustrate this differently when we say let's try to use links. For instance, here, let's say we have a link, and this link starts with, let's say this starts with HTTPS. Let's say example.com and close link, and we'll write here secure link here, and the secure link we want to make blue. And then we want to have the same link here, but this will have HTTP, and this is not secure. Let's make this pink instead of not secure, and then here we'll have not pink. So we come to the style and say we want every anchor tag that has a href attribute that starts with HTTPS, like this, and we want that to be. So when we come here and refresh, the first is pink because it's a secure link that has HTTPS, and not secure, not pink. This will be very useful when you start building your web apps and you want to put different styles, custom styles for your page based on different things. If you want to have one that the attribute ends with a specific value, then you can use the $sign or ends with is equal to the value. Let's say we want to do one that for images, let's say ends with .png, for instance, and we want the color, or we want to have a border that is different. Let's say border will be 3px solid, let's say red, and then we'll come here and let's try to put images here. So I'm just showing you that all styles can be applied to any HTML element. You just have to understand what it means. So let's say the source here will be, let's imagine that we have an image called logo.png. We don't, so we'll only see the broken image link there, and source is equal to, let's say photo.jpg. So now when we refresh, this is for, sorry, this is not for the anchor tag, this is for the image tag, because it's the source attributes that we are looking at. And then we'll come here and we refresh, so we have that red, right? So you see how we use the value that ends with a particular value. So we can have elements where the attribute contains a specific substring anywhere at all. If we want to illustrate anywhere, we use the asterisk. So you can refer to your lesson resource and see this applies. Okay, so you use asterisk anywhere. So in summary, we look at the different selector where we use either the attribute or the value of the attribute in any position, in different positions, to apply style to HTML elements. And now the key difference between a combinator and an attribute selector is that the combinator defines relationship between elements, while attribute selector selects based attributes and values. The symbols that we use for combinators, we use space, greater than sign, plus, and a tilde sign. But for the attribute selector, we have the square bracket, we have the equal, caret equal, we have the $sign, and so on. So the combinator selectors target elements by structure, and the attribute selector targets elements by attributes. So this is where we end this lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to look at pseudo classes, pseudo elements, and links in CSS. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.